This is episode 5 with Director of Soccer Academy at TAC Sports, Coach Marco. Welcome to TAC Talk presented by TAC Sports. My name is Coach Mitchell, one of the many amazing coaches we have here at TAC Sports, and every week we'll be discussing with you a variety of sports topics and ways for you to improve, not only as an athlete in the individual sport, but in your overall health. On today's lesson plan, we have Soccer Academy Director Marco Gomes and talking about soccer development. We appreciate you guys tuning into this episode with us. Now, let's get this talk started. Let's go! When you thrive to achieve the goals that you set out to achieve, you have to go through something called development. In sports case, and in this case, talking about soccer, you guys go through something called player development. And we have the guy to talk about that today. Marco is the director of Academy Soccer at TAC Sports. And in his talk today, he's going to talk about how important drills are to his practices and how aggressive mindset are what coaches look for the most in looking and choosing their players. We appreciate you, Marco, for joining into this podcast with us.
Thank you so much for having me, Mitchell.
No, not a problem. So first, let's talk about player development, and more specifically in soccer. The first question I want to ask you is, tell us about how drills are part of your player development and practice. How big is it?
So that's our tool. That's what I used to say to the coaches, that the exercise that we use, it's our tool to develop the children. And you need to be careful with the tools that you use. Mm-hmm. I try to use the exercises that involve the 5 big components of a soccer practice. Okay. A technical approach, tactical approach, physical approach, a psychological point of view, and overall on a social point of view as well. So if an exercise includes a little bit of all these 5 components, it will be an exercise that is more rich. And those are the exercises that we like to use at the TAC Academy, and we promote using exercises that have a little bit of these 5 components. Okay. Now, of course, there are exercises that need to be, particularly in the beginning, in the early ages, there's exercises that need to be a little bit more, because it's the introduction, so a little bit more a little bit more simple. Basic. For example, exactly. Okay. For example, an exercise of one player on one side and another player on the other side, just passing the ball between each other. Yeah. This is an exercise that doesn't include a big tactical component, because they're standing, but we're just introducing the passing with the inside of the foot, outside of the foot, different types of ways to pass the ball. Mm-hmm. But yeah, those exercises are used in the early ages of the development of the player, and then we progress them to exercises that include more components that are technical, tactical, psychological, physical, and of course the social component that soccer has. Okay, so basically it's a huge part of it. Yeah, it's our tool. It's what we need to use, and we need to be very careful on the exercise that we pick, and we are.
Oh, that's awesome. So we're going to continue talking about drills, and I'm going to paint you a scenario here. Mm-hmm. If a player came up to you and asked for help of their certain thing, like a certain thing, maybe it's their shooting, their passing, whatever, what's the process you go through to help that player and find that? And do you find that right drill to help him, or do you go by like a process or a step, or is it all your head?
So usually what I do is I present them a scenario in a game. Okay, that's why game is a big focus on our practices, on my practices. That's why it always includes game. I believe that it's the point where we can see if what we tried to learn, what we tried to teach in the beginning of the session is assimilated at the end with that game portion. Okay. And in that game portion, we can assess if the player is actually evolving or putting in practice what we learned through the session. Yeah. If we realize that a player needs a little bit more of a personalized approach, of course we take him on the side and we try to stimulate or use an exercise that will develop that specific skill or that specific weakness that he has. Okay. It's super important that in our academy we try to build, and a lot of things, one of the things that it's super important is that I try to create a safe environment at learning, and that's going to be super important for the children. Mm-hmm. Meaning that if in the practices they are allowed to do mistakes,
Yeah.
and it's super important that they are not afraid of doing mistakes,
Yeah.
and that's what we try to promote.
Yeah.
We try to promote that, taking away attitudes that sometimes children have normally, like a kid falls on the floor and everybody laughs.
Yeah.
You understand? Sometimes that could be very detrimental to the child.
Yeah.
So
Mentally,
we try
right.
to, exactly, mentally. So that's what we try to do, is just try to isolate those, actually take them away from our practices and create a safe environment of learning. If the kid that did the mistake is laughing about it, okay, everybody laughs.
Yeah.
If not, we just tap on the back and say, buddy, you can do better. I know that. And that's super important, the psychological point of view and the motivation that not only the coach needs to give to the children, but also other children giving to each other. That creates a better bonding, a great sensation of a group.
Yeah, team environment.
Exactly.
Kind of like almost like a family. Like, you know, it's not actually your actual family, but it still feels that sense of these are your brothers. These are people that go out for there and put all their effort, all their love into the game of soccer. So
Absolutely, and that's key to the development of a soccer team, because the players need to work together.
Yeah.
What I say to them all the time is, in a soccer game, there's going to be players that will do mistakes.
Yeah.
And who's there to cover for their mistakes? It needs to be another player.
Okay.
They need to try to not do the mistakes.
Yeah.
In case they do it, they first try to solve it. After, if they're not fast enough to try to solve the problem, another player is there to cover for them. And that's the type of belief and the type of philosophy that we create in our academy.
Okay, that's awesome. So we're going to keep talking about challenges that kids face. One challenge I know, as myself, I did play soccer as a kid. I also played all sports and basketball as well. And one challenge I always faced was I would learn the skill sense in practice scenarios. When it came to that game time where it's game day and I try and incorporate it, I never could. How do kids overcome this challenge of putting what they learn in practice into game scenarios?
So usually the technique that I use is I try to tweak the game in order to promote more of the skill that I wanted to happen.
Okay.
For example, lots of times I put them playing a game and I say that the goal is worth the amount of passes that you do between each other.
Okay.
So this means that if they do 10 passes between each other and then they score, the goal is worth 10. If they do just one pass between each other, the goal is worth 1. This will promote more passing, because I always ask them, do you prefer to score a goal that is worth 10 or do you prefer to score a goal that is worth 1?
Exactly.
So like this will develop that skill and will promote more passing in that game.
Okay.
And then there's other ways of doing it. Like, for example, if I want to promote a little bit more of shooting in a situation of a game, what I just do is bring the nets closer to each other. Like this, it will promote more kicking on the net because the nets are closer. And yeah, those are the types of things that I was talking about, tweaking or some rules that you can build in a game. For example, if you have a player that that is not touching the ball too much, what I usually do is I put him neutral player.
Okay.
And like this, he will be playing for both teams.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah.
That helped. I feel that helping a lot going to game scenarios.
Exactly. And that's how I try to develop or another technique that I use is, for example, when we practice dribbling and when I show them a specific dribbling skill, for example, some scissors. What I try to say is, now we go to a situation of game, and if there's a scissor if there's a scissor happening, and then after there's a goal, that goal will be worth 10. All the other goals will be worth 1. Like this, it will promote this, and it will, although the game is a little bit free for them, they have this specific rule, this specific tweak that they can actually do, and if they do it, they have a reward, which is a big reward. And that's something that it promotes a lot, the execution of that specific skill in the game.
No, that's awesome. That's awesome to see too how you kind of use it as more points worth. So it goes into their mental mindset as, oh, if I can do this, I can get more out of it instead of every other skill.
Exactly.
I think that's really cool.
Yep.
Thank you. I know we talked about in summer camp about coaches want on their team an aggressive player, not necessarily a dirty player, but an aggressive player, one that can go after the ball. In all sports, we kind of want that. I have a question. Are people born with that aggressive mindset, or is it like taught to them as they grow up? And if it is taught to them, how do you teach as a coach that?
So that's really hard. That's a really hard point that sometimes there's some struggle on the team. Honestly, the biggest how I try to bring aggressiveness, let's say, in the game is I try to push through their competitive side.
Okay.
You understand?
Yeah.
So if the kids are really competitive, and that's why I like to work with the group that is super competitive, and I try to promote that competitiveness because it will create more aggressiveness in the game.
Exactly.
So basically, what cues that I use to them is who's stronger, try to get the ball.
Yeah.
Do you understand? Who's going to, for example, an exercise where there's a player or there's a ball in the middle,
Yeah.
and then you don't see that any of the players are trying to getting the ball with the type of aggressiveness, let's say,
Yeah.
with the type of will that I want. I try to promote always that and try to say to them that you guys need to want the ball more than the other team. And I always try to say to them, that you need to want the ball more than the other team. Okay, this will promote their sense of like pressing, and this is the type of mentality that I want in our players, and that it needs to happen in soccer, which is pressing ability and to press the other team and to not let the other team play.
Exactly.
Sometimes that is a struggle for some kids that are not competitive, for some kids that just let the ball go or let the player pass. Of course, it's something that it's created throughout the years.
Yeah.
But yeah, usually I push from their competitive side, and I try to because they want to win so badly, particularly the generation right now. It's something that eventually it will develop in them, and particularly with the cues that I used to push from that competitiveness.
Okay, cool. So basically saying that if you're, let's say, in a tryout, what coaches want to see is that aggressive nature always, right? That's the number one thing. It's like effort put in. Hear that, kids? That is what you want to do in tryouts. Put it out there. Give your all out. Put some pressure on them. That's what coaches notice first before your actual skill, your heart and your aggression.
Exactly. It's not, let's say, aggressiveness, but what I used to use is wanting to get the ball. Okay. Wanting to get the ball more than the other player.
Okay.
That's what I like to see in games, and that's a group that motivates me, a group that pushes to get the ball and wants the ball more than the other player.
All right, cool. So soccer's been around for a while, and all around the world, soccer is played.
Yep.
So I just want to ask you, what are some positive trends that you see happening in soccer and like how it's played, and also the opposite, some negative trends? Do you have any thoughts on that?
So I believe that there's a trend now that is happening in soccer. I believe that it's more developed now. I've seen more companies working on the private personal soccer training. Okay. This is something that I believe it could have good points, but it also lacks about a lot of points. One of the good points that it has is like it's another hour of practice for the child. And if the coach tries to, depending on the ability of the coach needs to understand that the exercises that they're going to put need to be exercises that are going to be simple but adapted to the game.
Okay.
Now, what lacks about every personal training session is in soccer specifically is the group. You understand? That psychological pressure of a player running to get the ball from you. You understand?
Yeah.
And that's what I think that it's a trend that is happening in soccer right now. The rising of personal training, soccer training. And I believe that you need to be careful. You understand? I believe that if the kid has a chance to work in the group, that will develop the kid absolutely more than a personal training session, which he is alone with a coach. But if there's any, but we need to also understand that if the kid plays more soccer, he will develop more into being a soccer player in a group or individually. The more soccer that he has, the more hours that he has with the ball on his feet, it will develop him more as a soccer player. And this is something that is not about science; it's about the facts that we see. Okay.
That's awesome. What percentage of time should kids be spent developing, playing for their competitive soccer team, and using strength building and conditioning? What's the percentage you think of? Do you understand the sense of that?
Yes, absolutely. So that's another trend, which is involving the physical training in the soccer training. That is something that also can be like has pros and has cons.
Yeah.
Okay, in my opinion. What I think is that we need to be careful about that because, for example, regarding stamina, putting a kid running around the field without the ball, this will improve his stamina, absolutely no doubt. But is it motivational for the kid that comes to a soccer practice?
Yeah.
Maybe it's not.
No.
Okay. In my experience, it wasn't, and sometimes I needed to do that lap.
Yeah.
And there's ways of practicing stamina and increasing stamina using situations of game.
Yeah.
Okay.
No.
And there's one thing that is called specific stamina of the game.
Okay.
Which means on a soccer game, you're not required to run all the time. You have moments that you walk, you have moments that you trot, and you have moments that you sprint. You understand? You're not required to run all the time.
Yeah.
So that's why that continuous run around the field, although it builds stamina, it doesn't build the specific stamina of the game.
Yeah.
Do you understand? And that's why I try to include all the physical training inside a soccer practice, which means working in strength, like for example on exercises of shooting, simple exercise of going around cones. Instead of, for example, just dribbling the ball around the cone, you dribble the ball around the cone and then you do a burpee.
Okay.
You're really focusing on your upper body strength, on your jump. You understand? And with these small tweaks on a soccer practice, we can include the physical training without even the child realizing that they're doing some physical training.
That makes
okay?
sense.
And that, believe it, is the key. Okay? The key to put physical training inside without taking away their soccer experience and their soccer hours that are so important in the soccer training, of course.
So when you train kids, when I said talking about how do you like manage all, you put it sometimes all together with conditioning, the training, and the development all together.
Absolutely.
That's
I
awesome.
try to include everything together. Like I said in the beginning, the components, the 5 components of the soccer practice.
Yeah.
The technical, the tactical, the psychological, social, and this physical component, which is super important, which is a component that I always include in the practices, which is super easy to include, but sometimes we need to work on things that, for example, the upper body strength, which is something that is super important also in soccer, and to create a player that is balanced and a player that is more resourceful.
Okay, awesome. So this is a time where we do our sport in the spotlight.
Very good.
You are the coach or director of soccer academy here at TAC Sports. So I just want to give you a minute to tell everyone about it, where can they find more information about it, and how to join the teams.
Okay, so yeah, we are the TAC Soccer Academy. We have teams all the way from under 5 till under 13.
Okay.
Okay, and all the information you can find it on our website at tacacademy.ca.
All right, cool.
And you can also send me email at marco@tacsports.ca.
Awesome.
I will also be able to reply to you and clarify all the situation. The practices have different days. Now, unfortunately, we are in the indoor season, which is something that I honestly don't like too much. Unfortunately, we need to play on indoor. Eventually, we will have more turf fields, and the spring-summer season will start, and that's where we play the most amazing soccer with a good environment and how it should be played outside.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, in Canada, we cannot do this in the winter.
Yeah, it gets pretty cold.
Exactly. But yeah, all the information you can see at tacacademy.ca. And please, I welcome all inquiries about our classes in our groups.
And just to help out with the audience here, what are the age groups that you have teamed so far?
We have now U5, U6, U7, U8, U9, 10, 11, 12, and 13.
All the way to 13.
All the way till 13.
Awesome.
Yes.
So it gives everyone the opportunity to join at their age of 13 to 6, right?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
Absolutely. What we do all the time is the first 2 practices are free, just to see if the kids like the environment, just to see if the parents like what they see.
Yeah.
And so the first 2 practices are absolutely for free. And then we talk about the registration process, which, because our teams are all playing in the Greater Toronto Indoor Soccer League or on the Downsview League. So we have these competitive games every week.
Okay.
And that is something that, of course, we always welcome new players and new talent for our team, and we're always welcome to develop new talent in our team.
That's awesome, because I know teams, when they make their team set at the tryout dates, they don't let anybody else on. But here sounds like you guys, if they think that someone is good enough to play for your team, you let them come in for a tryout and see if it actually works out.
Absolutely, absolutely. One of the most important things in what we try to create at TAC Academy is an environment that is always welcoming of others.
Yep.
That's something that is that happens. Even it was promoted to our teams. Each team know that they will have players trying out. And of course, nobody wants to join a team that doesn't treat them right in the first practice.
Yeah.
Right? So our teams are like super welcoming of the players. We are welcoming of every skill. What I always say to the parents and what I always say to people that want to join us is your kid motivated to play soccer?
Yeah.
If your kid is motivated to play soccer, we have the tools, we have everything to develop the talent on your child.
Awesome.
Yep.
Well, thank you for coming in, Marco. We
Thank
really
you so
appreciate
much for
it.
having me, Mitchell.
All right, thank you.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye.
And that's the end of our talk today. Please follow TAC Sports on Instagram at TAC Sports. And DJ Alex, play us out. Let's go. Have a great rest of your week.